Hi, in this video we will see how we can use the expand function, and we would also look at the practical use case of that as well. So let's get started. So consider the data on the left hand side. We have hospital A, B, and C, and hospital A and C had some accident cases in that particular year, and hospital B only looked after some false cases. So these are the totals. But that doesn't mean that these hospitals only look after the accident or fall cases. They actually look at accident, falls, burns, drowning, suicide, and strangulation cases. But in that year, there were none. So you can see that we have put 0 there to indicate that there were no cases of burns, drowning, suicide, strangulation. This table on the right-hand side clearly shows that these hospitals have the capability to attend all these kind of cases, but they only had some cases of accident and some cases of fall. So the right-hand side table carries much more information than what's being shown on the left-hand side. And that's made possible by using the expand function. So let's get started and see how we can do that. We'll be using these two packages, tidyverse and pivot tabular. Let's prepare our data. Look at my data set. I have 3 columns. One is a hospital, and this is the number of patients, and this is the injury type. So hospital A looked after some accident cases. Hospital B looked after some falls cases. Hospital C looked after some accident cases. But if you notice that we have in the factor, we have different levels. So accident, fall, burns, drowning, suicide, and strangulation. So this is the capability of those hospitals, that they can look after these kind of cases, but they happen to get only these cases during that particular year in our data set. And I'm going to use the pivot tabular just to pivot the data and show it to you. So if I use the data set which we have created, we would get something like this. So this is a table showing that the actual result from this data, saying this hospital looked after the accident cases, this hospital looked after the false cases, and this is the total of the column, and this is the total across the row. That's fine, but this table gives us the impression that these hospitals have the capability to look after only the accident cases or the fall cases. But that's not the reality. The reality is that they look after all these kind of cases. So we can use the expand functionality, and we can tell the system that we want to expand the data based on the columns hospital and injury type. So what we're saying is that we want to have all possible combinations of the hospital and all possible combinations of the factor injury type. And remember that when we created the data, these were our factor levels. So using this, I'm simply going to expand the data, saying that I want to get all possible combinations of the combination hospital and the injury type. And if I run this, you would notice that in the DF we had only 3 records, but in DF1 we have 18 different observations. Now you can see that each hospital has actually 6 rows. So hospital A, accident, hospital A, fall. So this is all combinations. And similarly for hospital B, we have 6 rows. And for hospital C, we have 6 rows. That's fine. But we haven't got our data. So the number of patients in those cases. So we can use this functionality, saying that we want to use the data frame DF, and we want to expand it based on all possible combinations of hospital and injury type. And then I'm going to use the left join and use our original dataset DF and tell it that we want to join the data by where the hospital equals hospital. So the column DF hospital equals hospital and injury type equals injury type. So if I run it, lastly, I'm saying if there's any NAs, we want to replace it by 0. So let's do that. And if I run it, you get another data set called DF2. Now you would notice that this has 18 rows and additional column has been added, which gives you the actual number. And to make it more presentable, let me run through a pivot table. And if I use DF2 as my data set and render the pivot, you would see that our pivot has now expanded. The sum total remains the same, but now this table is actually telling you that these hospitals have the capability to attend accident, fall, burns, drowning, suicide, and strangulation cases, but they only happen to get some accident cases and only happen to get some fall cases. So, and there were no cases in these areas at all. So this gives you a better picture and more information in the same table. I hope you found this information useful and practical. Thank you very much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.